I'm Father Kevin Anderson, pastor of Christ Our Light.
And I'm Teresa Davila, parish administrator here. And thank you for joining us for another session of Theology on Tech. We were just talking with Jenny, who's behind the camera. There's Jenny's hand. And it's been just over 2 years ago since we started with our very first Theology on Tech. And we've had some fun evenings and discussions, and looking forward to another good one
in
tonight.
the midst of COVID, right? Is when we did
Just
this?
before COVID.
Just before.
Okay,
We were on the cutting edge.
Okay.
Joanne Norman says hi.
Hey,
Hi, Joanne.
Thanks for joining. So it's delightful. It's just a nice way to get to, not only for you to get to know more stuff, but for us just to kind of reach out into your home. So I think it's great. We've had over the years a lot of people from, I think, all over the country who have chimed in, which is delightful, which is good. So we will officially be beginning in just a couple minutes. But yeah, just talking about stuff, talking about, I don't know, you drove up from in the snow?
I did, yeah. It wasn't too bad. We
Yeah.
did definitely have a little more snow south.
And I was out there shoveling earlier today, which was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't mind at all. I've got, actually the place where we live here, where the new parish is going to be, it is gorgeous. So this driveway I have, it's a canopy of trees, so when we have this thick snow, it's just so pretty. And this morning, I'm sitting right over here, and a couple deer walked by on the deck.
Oh, wow.
Just well, they kind of jump by because the snow's so deep, but I just love it. I think I should feed them, but no, I don't think I will. I don't want them hanging
They might
around.
eat your flowers when it comes to summer.
I know. They might be hanging out all the time, but out here we do have lots of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really a beautiful property. We're pretty lucky that our future home will be out here.
Coyotes and turkeys and deer and otters, so it's pretty nice. So we are, again, if those of you just joining us, I'm Father Kevin Anderson, pastor here.
And I'm Teresa Davila, parish administrator.
This is another installment of our Theology on Tech. So we're delighted that you're chiming in tonight. Hopefully you've got a nice warm beverage to aid you in this journey tonight.
And we were just talking about, for those who are just joining, about the beginning of Theology on Tech. And actually, Theology on Tech was the brainchild of Jenny Adams. We used to do Theology on Tap,
which was being the same kind of format in a bar, and which was a lot of fun, just with schedules and people's, I don't know, just
Weather
traveling.
was also
Weather.
Yeah.
We didn't have as many people as we thought, so we tried this, and all of a sudden, wow, we have a lot of you chiming in, so thank you for joining us,
yeah,
which is really
and
fun.
it opens it up to the whole, not just our community that's close to us, but around the country, which is exciting. And, you know, people can always come back and watch later if they can't join us live.
Betty Ann is joining us from New Jersey.
Hey,
Hi,
Betty
Betty
Ann.
Ann.
So in honor of the Theology on Tech, if you have a beverage you want to join us, please do. We've got tea here tonight, but go ahead and drink whatever would help you listen well tonight. Because we're going to be talking about the new year, which we just started, and how we can be better through the year. Got some ideas for you, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
So.
And I think we'll start off actually with a question from somebody who is viewing.
Okay.
So we have, why in the Our Father do we ask God to lead us not into temptation? It seems to me that God would never lead us into temptation. God leads us to good.
Great question. I think it's all about the translation. As you know, the New Testament is written in Greek, and the whole word lead us means more kind of like take us in a direction. So it's the whole idea of not so much that God is going to take us into evil, but that God is there for us for good. So I think a better way of saying that is, God, help us, again, not to go into temptation. It would be a better way to say it, because you're right on, whoever the caller was, that God is not going to lead us into bad things, to tempt us, nothing like that, but we expect God to do good things for us. So it's all in translation, sorry.
All right. Well, people have been making New Year's resolutions for many years, for probably 3,000 years, going back into the ancient times. The start of a new year, which we are in right now in 2023, that makes us think about new beginnings and a way to make a brand new start. So So, and really, like, it's not like the New Year's a magic reset button.
Right.
Like,
Correct.
you can start anytime, and it's not like midnight January 1st. You're like, oh, great, I can start something now. We can do stuff anytime. But to our listeners or viewers out there, how many of you have made a resolution this year? And if you have, if you'd like to share, what are they?
That'd be interesting to hear. Yeah, exactly.
And I think some of the usual suspects are, going on a diet, learning a new language, maybe having more patience with your children, maybe children being better to your parents. Taylor?
Well, I'm a member of a gym, and there's always more people in January than there are in December. People have good intentions, say, I'm going to join, I'm going to get fit, and they're not there all year long, unfortunately.
So yeah, some other popular ones are, reading, watching less TV.
Wait, no reading?
No, reading. You should read.
Oh, yes, yeah, okay, good. Yes.
Especially the Bible.
Yes. Read more.
Yeah.
Read more.
Read more.
There you
Watch
go.
less TV.
Okay. There. Okay.
Read the classics. I think.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
like that.
And spend more time in prayer.
Always a good thing. Always a good thing. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about that a little later. If we have time, I would love to. My thought about resolutions, many times people make them, but many times it's filled with guilt. I should. I like to say, have a New Year's focus. Like, I want to focus this year on that. So you can get back at it. Like, let's say you get out of focus a little bit, or you get kind of sidelined a little bit. Well, get back at it type of thing, as opposed to, here it is February and I broke my resolution. Forget it. I'm not going to do it anymore. Because I think there are people who probably make resolutions, some of you are watching, and then you don't follow through, and then you feel bad about it.
Yeah.
That doesn't help.
No, and I think that's the purpose or the intent of whoever came up with resolutions anyway. I guess there's a study that found there are 3 types of people when it comes to resolutions.
Okay.
There's people that make no resolutions. 2, people who make 1 resolution and actually stick to it throughout the year.
Okay.
And 3 make 15, and by the end of the year, forget what they even were. So.
Well, I think the great thing about the start of a new year or the start of a season, like Lent's coming up, is the fact that it's a good time to kind of reset. It's the kind of thing to get back at what we all know, the stuff we should be doing. There's nothing new. Even Pope Francis has some ideas that we're going to share in a bit. But it's the whole idea of saying, okay, here's the date, I want to go. It kind of goes back to the whole idea of having with the week. We start Mass on a weekend, oftentimes with Sunday. That's the whole idea of this is going to be a better week than it was before. I'm going to put more trust in God than I did before. So maybe that's why I like morning so much, because it's a redo, it's a restart, a reconnection.
Your reset button.
There you go.
Yeah, I like that. Maybe I'll start liking mornings more. We'll see.
You're not a morning person?
No, not so much. No.
I love my mornings.
Jenny, do we have any responses
We
yet?
do. So Jerry shared that he's doing the catechism in a year. Do you guys want to explain what that is?
Exactly.
cool.
There is a program that you can turn to through Ascension Press. And basically it's taking the Catholic Catechism, which has been renewed, this has been just some years ago, and going through the whole thing in 1 year, 365 days. If you haven't started yet, you can start at any time, because there's day 1, day 2, day 3. It's not dependent on the January calendar at all. But it's the whole idea of a priest up in Duluth, Minnesota, Father Mike Schmitz, who's taking us through the Catechism, just as he did with the Bible in a year, his very popular podcast of last year. So it's the same idea.
Oh.
I haven't seen it yet. I've seen the Bible in a year, but not the podcast, the Catechism in a year. So I'm excited to see what it has. But for those of you who'd like to know more about your faith, what are the kind of the rules, the doctrines, the whys, check it out. Catechism in a year through Ascension Press.
And Lisa also shared catechism in a year and strengthening relationships in person.
Oh, that is a really great one coming out of COVID and being able to reconnect and
so with that, it's interesting, to strengthen them. Would that be more of just chatting more, or would it be more of like going deeper or asking forgiveness? What could be a lot of things. I think a lot of times we get stuck with the kind of online relationships or
Yeah, it's very
phone,
or even
text.
not even just the relationships, but your social media presence. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you're just a different version of yourself. Maybe not quite as true as in real life.
Yes. And I think there is always something about the face-to-face. I get a chance, as we do, a lot of people from our parish to visit elderly. And I know it's not the same. I could call them, which I do, but when I'm there in presence with them, there's just something wonderful to be able to smile, laugh, pray together. So I think maybe that's a great resolution. Who sent that in? Thank you.
Yeah. Any more that we have to share, Jenny?
Yeah, just that catechism in a year is a popular one.
Wow.
All right, great.
A lot of people are on
and here's
board.
another one. We are doing monthly game nights with friends, more date nights, and trying to go on coffee dates with individual friends.
Nice.
Cool.
Game nights, date nights. I think that's so important to just, again, spend time with the one you love. On a not just whenever, but actually to set it aside. I think it's very healthy.
Yeah, it's really, you have to make it a priority. Like family game night every Friday, or we've been into puzzling lately. Yeah.
With your family, nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah, because I think the time thing is so. That's a burden for a lot of people, just finding the time. But if you can set the time each week, each month to say, this is what we're going to do, it's a priority. Very healthy.
yeah. And I think most things that people resolve to do are typically good and they're worthwhile goals, but it's just, I mean, even if you get a little off track, doesn't mean you have to wait till next year to start over.
Get back at it. Get back at it.
Well, the actual definition of a resolution is a determination to do or not to do something. It's a plan for your future actions or ways of thinking. So we do have a question.
Okay.
Should a Christian make a New Year's resolution? And what kind of New Year's resolution should a Christian make?
Interesting question. Well, there's certainly no law or commandment that says you can't make a resolution. There's nothing against it. I think it's a good idea for everybody, whether they're Christian or not. I mean, the whole idea, like we talked before about a restart, many times we have Lent for that, but even to get an early start in that with January, to say like, I want to be better. I want to be as God wants me to be. There is a saint, Irenaeus, he's in the 3rd century. He said, the glory of God is a person fully alive. Isn't that nice? The glory of God, if you want to know what gives God glory, is when you are fully alive. So the whole idea of a resolution is like doing something or stop doing something that's going to make you your best self. And I think, wow, that would give God glory, whatever that is, even if it's something mundane or something that seems so trivial or something that's even not good for you. Because most of us know things that we could do already. So yes, without a doubt, I think a Christian could give a resolution. I'd like to see more people, again, focus not just on losing weight, going to the gym, which are good, but focusing on their spirituality, focusing on their relationship with God, whether that's individually, what we call your spirituality, or collectively, which we would call our community or our religion. And I think for a lot of people, just the whole idea of just coming back to church on a regular basis. Unfortunately, with COVID, I think a lot of people just got lazy.
Out of habit.
Out of habit,
maybe.
Okay. You're being very nice, but I just think people...
I am the nice one.
We have a great online presence with our masses, and we're so grateful to Jenny Adams and for all of you parishioners who support it. But it's not the same as being in person. So many of you, we miss you. It's the whole sense of community, and it's receiving the Eucharist.
Yeah.
But we are delighted for those people who can't get to church, that they are joining us online, so we want to thank you for that.
Yeah, and maybe you're out of town for a weekend or whatever. It's a great way to still be able to stay connected.
Snowbirds.
With your home parish.
College students, people who are homebound, they can't get out. So we're fortunate to offer that to all of you.
Yep. So you're talking a little bit about letting go. Do you want to expand on that a little?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you. That's a popular theme, not only from me, but Jesus talked a lot about do not fear, be not afraid. It's the whole category of like, what do we need to stop doing? Meister Eckhart, who is a mystic from the Middle Ages, he said that many times we're going to get closer to God from what we stop doing than more from what we start doing. So for a lot of people, the letting go, and this is something to think about, if you haven't focused your focus yet or your resolution, perhaps thinking of maybe in this new year, trying not to be so much in control. That's a big one. That you need everything to work this way, or everybody's got to be this way. Or so many times we get so upset, like say with politicians or with the economy or things we really, really can't control, but we think we are supposed to. For some of you parents out there, I know that you want to control your kids, and we want to give them boundaries, we want to give them guidelines, but in many ways, especially when you have adult children, you can't control them. You can influence them, you can nudge them along, but for a lot of people, just letting go of your need to be in control, that'd be a huge one. Another one is your need, all of our needs, to always appear successful. It's like everything you do has to be wonderful, that you can never make a mistake. It's got to be the best this, the best that. I think for a lot of people, they suffer to that just because they keep hearing that it sounds like everybody else has a perfect life, which isn't true. And so you think you have to have a perfect life, and you get so down on yourself when things aren't well. Your kids aren't perfect. That apple pie you made isn't perfect, and I don't know how to make an apple pie, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But you get the idea. I mean, everything's got to be so productive or effective, as opposed to, here's the big thing, letting God be in charge.
And what an opportunity that you're missing out on, because when you make mistakes, that's when you learn.
Yes.
And when you're trying to be perfect and you don't pay attention to any of that, you're just missing out on that whole opportunity.
That's how you grow. That's how you grow. There's a priest, a Franciscan priest, that says we should strive for one good humiliation every day. Can you imagine that? You strive to get that. Just say, you know what, let me just get my ego out of the way, and so that I can just be humble to say, God, you are in charge. Another area that I think for a lot of us we could let go of is our need to be right. You know, like so many times when we talk about things that somehow, like, I have to have the answer, especially with the political climate, that somehow people, they've lost the whole idea of like learning, like you were just talking about, or conversing, but somehow they just get into yelling or screaming, and they want to be right.
Right, and it's that whole, I know you've talked about before, you're not listening. The conversation's happening, but you're just waiting to get your next point in. Kind of like I'm trying to.
You're pausing so then you can say a but, yeah. So think what would be a world if you didn't strive to be right. Because I do know people who are often right, and they want to have the last word, and they seem to have some good thoughts. They're just not very happy. But they're right. But they don't have that sense of joy about them. They always have to correct people or point out faults. And I think this world would be so much better, would be different, if people could really say, to become more curious and say, that's interesting. I never thought of it. Let me think of that. Unfortunately, if any of you young people out there, I know some 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds who already know everything. How boring.
Yeah.
You can't grow. And I know some elderly people, and some of you are watching that are in your 80s, 90s, and you're still learning. They're just fun to be with because they're like, I didn't realize that. Or I'd like to learn more about that. They're just easier to be with. So I hope I can grow into one of those elderly people who keep learning and growing.
Yeah, there's something to be said for lifelong learning, that's for sure. We do have a viewer question.
Okay.
This person is wondering what the Catholic Church teaches on Catholics attending marriages of baptized Catholics not being married in the Catholic Church. I know years ago it was not accepted, but the people being married, these particular people being married outside of the Catholic Church, have not currently been practicing Catholics. So
sure, I get it.
What do you think?
Well, unfortunately, it's becoming more and more common. We have a lot of people who are choosing not to get married in a church, and people who are not getting married even just even with a religious person at all. A justice of the peace. And actually, you can go online and become an officiant of a marriage for like $10, fill in a form.
United Church of Christ. Anybody's looking, I think.
Wait, is that?
Or Universal Church of Christ.
Yeah, United Church. No.
Sorry.
We like that.
Sorry, UCC.
Yeah. So it's a tough thing. I always go back to the idea of like, what would Jesus do? And I have to believe that Jesus would continue to attend those kind of services, even though in a sense it's like it's wrong, it's not right. I myself have gone to weddings of people who are Catholic who are not getting married in a church. I've had family members. And I always think that indeed if we want to bring people along to kind of enlightenment, we would do better by walking with them than opposing them. I just found that a lot of people, when you're saying, you're wrong, I'm not going to do that, then that kind of shuts down the dialogue. So I think it's one way to say that, not that someone's giving up their values and giving up their faith, but to say, no, we really want to walk with you and support you, and then perhaps maybe enter into a dialogue more along the way. So if some of you are having that situation watching this, I would encourage you to think of like, what would Jesus do? And for me, I would think Jesus would attend. Jesus hung around a lot with people who were not considered doing it right. And that was his way of like connecting with them and trying to bring them closer to God. And so maybe that's your opportunity also.
Yeah, maybe we don't have to try to go and save them, but walk along and support them. Because that's what Jesus would do.
And it gets tough because, especially with family members, people we love, who quote unquote should know better, but they're choosing not to. So perhaps if they see you being loving and charitable, they will like go, I want to come back to the church, as opposed to the opposite of saying, no, you're doing it wrong, I cannot go there. That sometimes that doesn't go over so well. I remember a story of a woman saying that she hasn't gone to church in 20, 30 years, because way back when she brought her toddler to church, and the priest actually in the middle of the service asked her to take the toddler out to the cry room. You know, I'm sure the kid was crying, I'm sure it was a disruptive of people around him, but she never came back.
Wow.
And so you got to ask the priest, was that the right thing to do? You know, because it created a barrier more than open a door.
Definitely. So. Probably she did not feel very welcome.
She did not very welcome. So hopefully you all feel welcome at Christ Our Light, whether it's a crying baby or a sleeping adult or
we love everyone. We're just happy you're here.
You're all welcome. You're all welcome, indeed.
All right. Well, here we have another question. If God loves me because God is God and loves us unconditionally, does God desire us to make resolutions?
Yes, I would go back again to that Irenaeus quote, that God wants us to be at our best self, wants us to be, in a sense, fully alive. I don't think God is going to say, oh, I'm disappointed you didn't make a resolution, or oh, I'm disappointed because you didn't keep a resolution. But I think God is wanting all of us to always grow. I think that's really the purpose of daily prayer, is that we're trying to be better. So I know in my prayer time that I will reflect upon the previous day, just saying, how could I be better? And many times with the resolution, it's the whole idea of saying, I could be better. Here's some avenues of how I could do it, whether it's this way or that way. I think it's a good idea. Good question. Thank you.
What if I have failed already at my resolution?
Wait, the new year just started.
It's the 19th.
Okay.
19 days in.
I would say don't worry about it at all. Get back at it.
Yeah.
It's not a goal of being perfect. It's just the goal of trying.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And to that, I have this group that I'm a part of. Their kind of slogan is, it's all or something, not all or nothing. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do everything completely by the book and fit in the box 100% of the time. If you are doing some of that change all the time, you're going to be way better off than you were before. Well,
I do know that studies of people who want to lose weight, many times they'll go on these fad diets, which almost always fail. I mean, you might lose weight immediately, but in the long run, it's better to do just a little bit, like lose a little bit of weight or do a little bit more than like this big dramatic change, which isn't long sustaining.
Yeah, we're not dietitians, but I mean, the more you restrict, the pendulum's going to swing back and you're going to go binge instead. So,
right.
Yeah.
So I always think it's that kind of those little lifestyle things, little changes that all of us can make. And hopefully with the new year, you can have a focus, a resolution of just even little tweaks you can make in your life. Do a little bit more of this, or maybe do a little bit less of that. I think that's the important thing. And I would even say, like, when you look back at your week or your month, to say, well, did I do more of that than I didn't do? Did I try at least to do my best with that? Even, it may not be perfect, but at least I was thinking of that.
Yeah. And one thing that I'm doing this year, it's not really a resolution, but it's kind of a way to reflect back once we get to the end of the year, is every week I have a jar at home, and I'm putting, like, what's one good thing that happened to me this week? Or one event that I want to remember from this week. And then at the end of, on New Year's Eve, you can open the jar and read about your fantastic year.
Wow, I like that a lot. That is really cool. Good.
Yeah. Our next question is, how can I be a better version of myself? Which we've touched on a little bit.
Yeah. Well, certainly just all the little things. And we all know a lot of these things. But as some of you who have been attending church for a while, there are 3 things that I strive to work on every day. And you can copy these if you want. Every day I strive for good exercise, good sleep, good prayer. Good exercise, good sleep, good prayer. Emphasis on good, because you can sleep, but it's the whole idea of getting enough sleep. For many of you, we just don't get enough sleep. And so it could be as easy as going to bed earlier or creating a more healthy sleep environment. On the exercise piece, I don't mean you need to run a marathon. Actually, we've got some thoughts about that later, but just doing a little bit more, such as, like, I don't know, take the stairs instead of the elevator. Do some kind of stretching in the morning, first thing, before you take a shower or before you get going. Just some little things that we all can do. And of course, good prayer. I mean, the whole idea of connecting to God well. All prayer is wonderful. But I do know that when people just put in the time, they just go through the motion. I don't know if that's their best prayer, as opposed to finding that avenue that really connects them well, whether it's silence or journaling or scripture reading or memorized prayer. There's so many forms of prayer. So it's finding that good form of prayer. And just a footnote to that, right now, if you are praying and it just doesn't feel good, you're just not connecting well, change it up. So you've been doing that style for a while. Well, do something different. Try something different. God doesn't care. God just wants to connect with you. So whatever you do, it's going to be a wonderful thing. But the new year could be a good time to say, well, I've never tried journaling. And actually...
Yes. Do we have a session online that you could watch about prayer journaling?
We do. As some of you know, I journal every day. And I often tell people to journal, and I was lucky enough to do a little recording on that. We did it as far as our fire program, an adult session, and we had it recorded. So you can actually find it
on our YouTube channel, which is Christ Our Light MN on YouTube.
And you could check that out for yourself. That might be something you want to try in the new year if you haven't journaled at all yet. It gives you just all the basics of that kind of prayer style. But there's so many prayer styles. That give it a shot.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And for me, what has also helped with whether it's exercise or prayer, setting an alarm in my phone, like making it, like blocking out that time on my calendar in my phone, so then it, like, you get alerts that okay, it's time to exercise, or okay, it's time to pray, because otherwise you're busy and you push it off and
forget about it.
There's laundry to do or there's dishes to do, and
yes.
Yes.
We do have a lot of opportunities at Christ Our Light, actually all over. I'd like to think that every parish does, but I know our parish has some specific things for you to become a better version of yourself.
Like our upcoming retreats.
We have some retreats. I'm going to be involved in a men's retreat happening the first weekend of February. It's up at Camp Anomia. All this information is on the website. And then we're doing actually an in-house men's retreat on Saturday, March 18th, the day after St. Patrick's Day. There's not information out yet about that, but you'll find out about that. So that's an in-person at Christ Our Light Parish.
Okay. So that's the men's retreat. The women's retreat is March 17th through 19th, also at Camp Onamia in Onamia, which is a great place. We've been fortunate enough to have our staff retreats there quite a few times. Teens, there's a retreat for you too. The Castaway retreat is March 24th through 26th at the Young Life Camp in Detroit Lakes. And tech retreats.
Oh, I've been helping with tech retreats for, a long time. Those are a wonderful, tech stands for Together Encounter Christ, which means of people of all ages and people who are not even Catholic. They certainly get a lot out of it. You can find out more. Do you have that?
Yeah, the website is cmtech.org. Stands for Central Minnesota Tech.
And tech is TEC.
Yep. And it's in, our local one is in the Belle Prairie, Little Falls area. And, I mean, all three of us have been on a tech. It's a great experience and definitely something that is a really important part in your faith journey.
I tell people all retreats are good. If you ever encounter an opportunity to go on a retreat, should I go? Go on it. A time to get away from your normal lifestyle, your normal situation, and get closer to Christ, do it. You're always going to get something out of it. So,
Well, I got a good one here.
Okay.
This person says, I am curious to find out where Father Kevin sees the church going in the next 30 years. So, pause. Then he's got a couple follow-ups.
Okay.
Like, could celibacy be eliminated? Could women become priests? What do we think?
Wow. Well, let me back that up a little bit.
Yeah.
That currently Pope Francis, when he is ordaining bishops, that he's choosing to ordain bishops who are from parishes. Pope Benedict and Pope John Paul II, they tended to ordain people who were they worked in offices or tribunals, chanceries, worked in what we call rectories, seminary. They're rectors of seminaries. So they had a different mindset as far as this is the law, this is the rule, we got to follow it. Pope Francis is going back to kind of what John the Sixth did, John the 23rd and Paul the Sixth, of ordaining people who are from parishes. So with that, I think the church in the future is going to be more pastoral. People who are more connected to what's really going on in people's life, as opposed to here it has to be this way or here it has to be perfect. Will celibacy be eliminated? It'll never be eliminated. The church has always had celibates. But could the option for priests to get married or religious men and women get married? Probably. I just think it's just a nice thing. I think that would. It's not the idea that only celibates are close to God, but it's the whole broadening of saying even in the married state, there is a closeness to God that you could share with each other, which is good. Now, whether women can be your priests or not, I would like to think it could happen. Pope Francis has already kind of opened the door a bit by let's just talk about women being deacons. He hasn't said we're going to do it, but he's kind of setting the stage.
Sure.
So it's almost like getting people ready to think about it, that maybe even the next pope will say, well, let's look into women being deacons, which is in the Bible, by the way, in Acts. There were women who were deacons. So it's nothing new. It's just that we kind of drifted away from that. So could we have women be priests? I think we should, not because there's a shortage of priests. I just think it's a good thing. I think God has gifted men with many things. God has gifted women with many things. And I think the church would be a richer place if, again, the priesthood and diaconate would be open to men and women. So I'm hopeful.
All right. That's a great question. And going back to your comment about bishops, our new bishop is a parish priest, right?
Yeah. So Father Pat Neary, he's a parish priest out in Oregon. He will be ordained as the 10th bishop of the St. Cloud Diocese on Valentine's Day, February 14th. I'm excited about that. I get to be involved in that liturgy a bit. I haven't met him yet. I look forward to that. But just from what I've read about him and seen interviews with him, he just seems like a very pastoral man. So I'm excited about where he's going to lead our diocese in the future. So if we call him now Bishop-elect Patrick Neary. If you're watching, welcome. We look forward to having you part of our faith community here in the St. Cloud Diocese.
Yes, and we are so grateful to Bishop Don Kettler
Yes.
for everything that he has done. He's just been a fantastic bishop for me to work under, and I think it's just...
Yes, we've had some great bishops, including Bishop Kettler, so thank you for your leadership with that, which is nice.
Well, we talked about resolutions and
Okay.
what we should do, which I don't like that term either, should.
Yeah,
I
could
wanna
do.
feel
Could do.
Could, thank
Things
you.
you could do, how's that?
Are there things we should stop doing?
Thank you for asking. I actually have some things. This actually comes from Pope Francis. And again, as you know, like all of us, we follow the direction of our Pope. He has three ideas for all of us to stop doing for the new year. I think this is very interesting. None of this is brand new. You all know this. One of the things he says is that we should stop judging others. Isn't that, I mean, that comes right from Jesus too. But so many of us, we get caught into gossiping, we get caught into saying, yes, I know better than this person, or I have this figured out, and we don't know the background story. So Francis would just say, just stop it, stop being so critical, start being more loving. I think that's just wonderful advice. Another thing that Francis tells us to do is to let go of a grudge. Just one grudge in the new year, maybe two. So many times we carry grudges over. I know people who have had grudges, since 10 years or since high school sometimes. It's like, wow, really? Get over it. So Francis even agrees and says, he says, don't end the day angry. Like for those of you that have a grudge, maybe with somebody you live with, someone in your family unit, try to resolve it. If there's somebody at work that it's just not fun to have that kind of heaviness over. So he would just say, do your best to maybe come and say, here's an idea. Just say, you know what, let's start over. Or something's not right here. It's not saying you're wrong. I'm not pointing at you. You're wrong. But just saying, let's begin again. But as opposed to saying, I'm not budging, I'm staying the way I am, she needs to change, he needs to change, that doesn't help at all. The third thing, which is very tricky, Pope Francis says to us, get off Twitter.
Or social media.
Whoa.
But not right now.
Yeah, not right now.
Because we're Facebook Live. We don't want you to leave yet.
I think what it means is cut down. So many people are so stuck on their phones. Like I mentioned before, I go to a gym and I work out, and I'm always amazed how many people, they're lifting, and then they look at their phone. Then they're lifting, and they're looking at it. It's like, what do you possibly have to look at on you're there to work out. I know for myself, I have a cell phone. I love my cell phone. It's a good way to communicate. But Francis says, just try to reevaluate your life and not be so dependent on a phone. Perhaps take some time out in nature more. Perhaps take a break from your phone and say, I'm only going to look at it at set times. Like I'm only going to look at my text messages or my email, like on the hour. And I think that's just good advice for all of us, especially any of you young people out there. I think you can get into that habit to think that I can't live without my phone. And gosh, I think God has more for you than just having that phone and being glued to it. There are some other things, though. Can I go on?
Keep going. Yeah, we've got 10 minutes.
Thank you. I'll try to get this in. Just doing some research. Last year, there were some things that we were told to stop doing as much. And I found these very interesting. And some of these make sense. Like we should all stop adding salt to our food just because what it does to our body, and it can add to more health issues. Even like closer to kind of like harder to the arteries and heart issues. Another thing is, and this is interesting, is to cut down on your pain medications. This is really controversial, especially those of you who depend on non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. The biggest one of those would be ibuprofen. Isn't that something? This is like to cut down on that because they're finding that it can lead to a reduction in your white blood cells. Another one, this touches me. It says cut down on running marathons. So
Perfect. I can do that.
this applies to men, not for women. But the whole idea of running more marathons. I've done one marathon. I loved it, did well with it. I only have one need. But those people who go excessive in their sports, they're just saying in the long run, it's not good for you. Here's for some of you younger folks, is to cut down on your weed smoking. This is not from Francis. This is just from scientists. Because the modern weed, marijuana, has a different THC than it had years ago. And it's doing things to our body that are more addictive, more causing some more psychosis type of things. So if you can think of that, of just saying, what's that?
The gummies too.
Oh, and I would say even the gummies now, even though they're legal, doesn't make them right or doesn't make them healthy for you. So do some thinking about that. A couple other things are really funny. Do you have a dog?
I do. Yeah.
Another idea is to cut down on your dog kisses, letting your dog lick you. Because there's stuff that the dog can spread, because the dog doesn't just lick faces. Dog licks other parts of its body.
Yeah.
And sometimes that stuff gets transferred. Weird, huh?
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Sorry, Marco. No more kisses.
Cut down on vaping, which is always a good idea. And a big one, which all of us can do, is cut down on your TV viewing. Probably all screens, but they found that people who watch 4 or more hours of TV a day, it could be bad for your heart. Now, that could be connected to things. If you're watching TV so much, you're probably not out walking, or you're probably not out gardening and doing all those other things. But just a general idea that for all of us, we don't need to be glued to the phone or glued to the TV so much.
Yeah, who has 4 hours a day to watch TV? That's crazy.
I know. But there's some people, I think, that maybe they're not even aware of it. They just have the TV on constantly. So, all right, that's what I got.
Well, we have another question that came in. It said, I'd like to hear your opinion on liturgical music. Is the trend becoming more solemn and traditional? Are we doing away with more joyous or celebratory music?
Wow. So solemn or traditional music has always been part of our history. And so I'd like to think a balanced liturgy, a mass, will have parts of that. So I mean, to only go with like a rock band, I don't think is accurate to who we are. But I don't think we'll ever go back to that, just because for a lot of our young people, there's so many good modern contemporary Christian songs that really move people. And I think that the balance would be good. Here at Christ Our Light, we have a phenomenal music program. And if you've been participating or viewing online, you'll know that we try to do a variety. We often say, if you don't like that piece of music, well, hang on, because the next one you may like, or hang on to the next weekend. But no, I don't think that going back to the solemn, actually I read a study recently through a program that we're involved with, is that there are some groups within the Catholic Church that think if we would go back to more traditional music, that will bring more people in. But the studies have is that it doesn't. It might help people who are already going to church, but for people who aren't going to church or people who have left church, the more only doing traditional music or more of the kind of solemn isn't what they're saying they want to be part of. So I think it's the variety that's going to help.
All right. Yeah, I like a variety.
Varieties are good.
And
Varieties are good.
The old classics are great. They're there for a reason, too.
Yes, I think the variety is important. The balance. There we go back to balance.
Yeah, balance. Here's another question.
Okay.
How can I become more Christ-like?
Wow. So I would like to say that Christ is in everyone. So Christ is already in you. In a sense, you're already Christ-like. So part of it is to honor that. And it might be going with the good things of Christ that you already have. Let's say you're already a kind person. Well, develop that even more. Let's say you're already a generous person. Well, do that even more. But I think to be Christ-like, again, our best model of that is Jesus. And Jesus many times went against what other people thought was good, where he would say, I want to forgive, or I want to be more loving, or I want to help out some that nobody else would help. So To be more Christ-like, I think, would be a sense of trusting that God presence and going against what everybody else says and just being more like Jesus in loving, forgiving, understanding, even if you don't get any support for it, to continue to do it.
Here's another one.
Okay.
Why do I need church when I can work on my relationship with God all on my own?
Wow, that's a question that I think has come up a lot of our texts.
Yes.
It's a very good question because indeed we want everyone to work on their own relationship with God. That's key. We call it spirituality. But also with spirituality, we have the whole idea that we don't do it alone. None of us are ever alone. We're in communities, we're in families, we're in neighborhoods. This is the whole idea of like, as our faith, we need other people to kind of nudge us along or to encourage us. The image I've often used is like a person could just like be a basketball player and just shoot baskets and dribble all day. You could do that. Mm-hmm. But there's something about the team. There's something about passing and receiving and getting a play together that helps. So I think for all of us, it's when we gather together in community, not only do we celebrate the God in the Scriptures, celebrate God in the Eucharist, but we celebrate the God in the community. Because maybe when you show up at Mass, you are that presence for Christ for somebody else. It's not so much what you can get out of it, but what other people are getting from you. And I know when I preside, I can look out there and that person had a tough week, and that person they just celebrated, and that person I know has a big decision. We're all in this together, that we all support each other. So I think the beauty of our faith is that it's meant to be communal. It's meant to be with other people. It's not just to be me and God, like one part of the cross. It's also me and other people. So the two parts of the cross are both important.
Yeah, and part of that is, in your church life, would be committing to a parish, discerning a place to root yourself in parish life, because we are called to be a community, and it's important to find the right parish community to help you grow in your faith, because the church needs you too.
Yes.
So, and actually this Saturday, January 21st, we have a new member welcome event at our church at 6 o'clock following our 5 o'clock Mass. So we would love for some more folks to join us for that.
Please RSVP right away.
Oh yeah, but RSVP, because we are providing a meal, so we would love to be able to make sure we have enough food for that.
Yeah, so if some of you haven't joined a parish and maybe are thinking of, is this a parish that you'd like to join? Come and find out. Come and we'll answer questions, and it's just a great way to meet other people around the journey. We'd love to have you.
Yep, most of our staff will be there, and lots of other new people that are joining too.
We have a lot
on the list.
People
this time.
joining. We're very fortunate.
I do have one more question that just popped in here.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting, I think.
Okay.
Does every diocese have a designated exorcist?
Yes, is the answer.
Really?
Should I say more?
Yes. Are you the exorcist?
I am not the exorcist.
Aww.
And typically that's the person who nobody knows. I don't know who the person is in our diocese. And many times what they do is that if someone thinks they're possessed or think there's something going on, there's a whole long process that many times the people think it's a possession isn't. And so they don't want to just have this out there. But for a lot of people, and I've visited a lot of people who think like their home is haunted or they hear something, and in talking to something, many times just even a priest or a person from the church can help just kind of calm nerves and perhaps just kind of like have a reset in that building or that room to say like, doesn't like this building again be a safe place, a good place. But indeed, every diocese has an exorcist. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
For those of you who are seeking more, the Bible in a year, the Catechism in a year, checking into our parish, because we have a lot of talks that we have done that you can check again on our parish website, which is
ChristOurLightMN.org. And we also, through our podcast, have a Live the Word podcast that Deacon Mark and his wife Mary Beth do weekly on the readings. So that's a nice reflection piece also.
So whatever you do is to get you closer to God, to make you more Christ-like is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
And whether you make a resolution or not, just taking that time to reflect on who you are, where you're at now, and who you want to be. It's
beautiful. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you at church.